People always noticed him because he was easy to overlook. He moved quietly, spoke only when needed, and never tried to stand out. In a busy place full of noise and opinions, he blended into the background like someone who had learned long ago that being unseen was safer. He showed up on time, did his work carefully, and left without making a mark. To most people, he was just another face passing through the day. The place itself was old and full of stories. The walls carried years of wear, and the air felt heavy with memories that no one talked about anymore. In one corner sat something that everyone respected and feared at the same time. It was delicate, valuable, and not meant for careless hands. People spoke about it in lowered voices. Some admired it from a distance. Others avoided even looking at it too closely. He noticed it the moment he walked in, though he tried not to stare. His eyes moved away quickly, but his body reacted before his mind could stop it. His fingers tightened slightly, as if remembering something they were not supposed to remember. He felt a strange pull in his chest, a mix of warmth and pain that came without warning. Others saw his glance and reacted fast. "Don't touch it," someone said, not unkindly but firm. Another voice followed, almost like a rule that had been repeated many times before. "It's not for everyone." He nodded, lowering his eyes. He was used to that tone. It wasn't anger. It was doubt. Doubt had followed him most of his life. No one knew much about him, and that was how he liked it. He never spoke about where he came from or what he used to dream about. When people asked simple questions, he gave simple answers. When conversations turned personal, he found a reason to step away. Silence had become his comfort. But standing there, with that quiet warning still hanging in the air, something inside him shifted. Not loudly, not suddenly, just a small crack in the wall he had built around himself. He remembered being younger, when his hands were not tired and his heart was not so careful. Back then, he believed that effort always led to something good. He believed that if you practiced enough, cared enough, and tried hard enough, the world would meet you halfway. Life taught him otherwise. Responsibility came early. Choices had to be made. Dreams were set aside, not because he stopped loving them, but because survival mattered more. One hard decision turned into many, and soon the distance between who he was and who he wanted to be felt too wide to cross. So he adapted. He became practical, quiet, dependable. He learned how to do what was expected and nothing more. Praise felt uncomfortable. Attention felt risky. Failure felt familiar. That was why the warning didn't surprise him. Don't touch it. It fit perfectly into the life he had built. He took a step back, giving the object its space. People relaxed when they saw that. Some returned to their conversations. Others stopped watching him so closely. The moment passed, or at least that's what they thought. Inside him, it did not pass at all. The room felt louder than before, even though nothing had changed. Every sound seemed sharper. Every movement felt slower. He kept his hands still, resting them at his sides, but he could feel a quiet energy moving through them, like a memory trying to wake up. He told himself it was nothing, just nostalgia, just a thought passing through. Still, his eyes returned again and again, not in longing, but in recognition. It felt like seeing an old friend after many years, someone you shared a history with but no longer knew how to speak to. People around him continued with their day, unaware of the small battle happening inside his chest. To them, this was just another moment. To him, it felt like standing at the edge of something unfinished. Someone nearby laughed. Someone else complained about the weather. Life moved forward, steady and careless. He stayed where he was. A part of him wanted to leave, to escape the pull and return to the safety of routine. Another part, quieter but stronger, asked a simple question he had avoided for years. What if? What if the part of him he buried was still alive? He pushed the thought away. He had done that many times before. Hope was dangerous. It raised expectations, and expectations led to disappointment. Yet this time, the feeling refused to fade. He remembered the first time he had learned how fragile beautiful things could be, how one wrong move could ruin everything. He also remembered the joy of getting it right, the calm focus, the way the world disappeared when his hands were working in harmony with his heart. That memory scared him more than failure ever could, because it reminded him of who he used to be. The warning echoed again in his mind, not spoken this time, but deeply familiar. Don't touch it. Don't try. Don't risk being seen. He understood why people said it. From the outside, he didn't look special. He didn't carry confidence in his posture or pride in his voice. There was nothing about him that suggested talent or skill. He looked like someone who followed rules, not someone who challenged them. And maybe that was true. Or maybe it was only the version of him the world had allowed to exist. He took a slow breath and reminded himself where he was. This was not the past. This was not a dream. This was real life with real consequences and real judgment. For now, he did nothing. But deep inside, something had already changed. A door he thought was locked forever had cracked open, just enough to let light in. And once light enters a dark room, it's impossible to pretend you can't see anymore. He had learned to live in the shadows of his own life, keeping quiet and watching others. But memories had a way of creeping back when he least expected them. That morning, as he stood in the old room where the object rested, the air felt heavier. It was more than just the physical weight of the place. It carried whispers of the past, echoes of moments he had long tried to forget. He thought back to when he was a boy. His world had been smaller then, simple in ways that made it both beautiful and cruel. He remembered the first time his fingers had found their rhythm on something delicate and challenging. The excitement had been instant. The way the world seemed to pause, the way sounds merged into a perfect harmony, it felt like magic. And in that magic, he had felt alive in a way he could never explain. But life was never simple. Responsibility arrived early, uninvited. Family struggles, unexpected loss, and the need to make ends meet slowly pulled him away from the things he loved. Every choice he made was practical, and every dream was shelved. He became the kind of person who knew how to survive but not how to thrive. He became someone who kept his talents hidden, not because he had nothing to give, but because the world had not been kind to those who dared to show more than what was required. Now, standing in the old room, he felt those memories pressing in on him. Each thought, each recollection of past joy and pain, moved like a river inside him. He realized that what people around him feared was not his inexperience, but the power he had hidden for so long. He had learned, by trial and mistake, that skill without control could be dangerous. His hands, once careless with curiosity, now carried years of understanding and restraint. But those years had also brought hesitation. He looked at the object again. It was the same one that had fascinated him as a child, the same one he had dreamt of mastering, and the same one he had been told to leave alone countless times. People around him assumed it was out of reach for him, that his hands would falter, that he would break something important. The warnings weren't just for protection. They were for doubt, directed at him from the world and reinforced by the quiet voice inside him that reminded him of every failure, every disappointment, every step he had taken away from what he loved. He knew the truth, though. The truth was that even after all these years, even after the detours life had forced him to take, part of him had never stopped learning, never stopped practicing quietly in corners where no one could see. Small movements, repeated exercises, secret routines. He had kept the spark alive even when the fire seemed gone. His hands remembered more than his mind sometimes did. His fingers could find their way, even when his heart hesitated. He remembered the nights spent alone, when the world outside was asleep. He would close his eyes, imagining the motion, the sound, the feeling of everything aligning. There was no audience, no judgment, no expectation. Only the raw connection between his mind, his heart, and his hands. Those moments were private, small victories he never shared, pieces of wonder he stored in silence. Each one kept him alive in ways nothing else could. Yet the fear of stepping forward never left. It had followed him like a shadow. The idea of failing in front of others, of shattering something beautiful, of disappointing not just them but himself was heavy. And still, the curiosity, the longing, the quiet need to touch what he loved, was heavier. He had learned that life is full of small choices, and sometimes the hardest ones are about whether to trust yourself. As he stood there, he realized that the warnings from others had a double effect. On the surface, they were about caution, about keeping something safe. But underneath, they reflected the world's inability to see beyond the ordinary, beyond what it expected from someone like him. People had judged him for being practical, for being quiet, for being careful. They did not see the years of hidden practice, the discipline, the moments spent honing what no one else knew existed. They only saw the present moment, and in that moment, he appeared inexperienced. But he wasn't inexperienced. He was trained by life, shaped by patience, and guided by a memory that refused to die. The longer he stayed away, the more he understood that avoiding risk had kept him safe, but it had also kept him from living fully. The tension between caution and desire was sharp and unrelenting. Every breath he took carried the weight of what could be lost and the thrill of what could be discovered. His eyes wandered again, tracing the contours of the object. It was not perfect. It bore signs of wear, small imperfections that spoke of history and use. And yet, it radiated a quiet majesty, the kind that could only come from time, care, and intention. He understood now why people feared touching it. They were protecting not just the object but the possibility it represented. They were protecting the space where wonder could exist, where someone capable could bring it to life. He remembered the sound of his own fingers moving years ago, the music and motion that had once defined him. The memory was vivid, and it made his heart ache with longing. There was a part of him that still ached for that connection, for the chance to feel that alignment between mind, body, and soul. And in that ache, he felt a spark of courage that he had not felt in decades. He took a small step closer, careful, deliberate. No one had to see. No one had to know. For the first time in a long while, he considered that perhaps some rules were meant to be tested, not blindly followed. The fear was still there, sharp and biting, but it was now balanced by something stronger. The memory of what he was capable of, the proof that he had survived life's tests and carried more than just scars. As he lingered, he thought about the others in the room, the people who had warned him. They were not unkind, just cautious. Their doubt was natural, based on what they saw and what they understood. He had been like them once, believing that caution was safety. But he also knew that safety without action could be a prison. To live fully, one had to risk even when the world said no. Even when fear whispered louder than hope. The tension inside him grew. His fingers itched to move, to reconnect with the memory, to test what he knew deep down he could do. He closed his eyes for a moment, recalling the rhythm, the balance, the flow. He remembered the patience, the focus, the quiet joy that had once been his closest companion. That joy was still there, buried but alive, waiting for the right moment. Opening his eyes, he let his gaze settle gently on the object again. He felt the pull stronger now, like a tide rising slowly but surely. He reminded himself of every failure he had survived, every challenge he had overcome, every quiet moment of practice in the dark. If he had learned anything, it was that mastery was not about being fearless. It was about knowing your fear and choosing to move forward anyway. He exhaled slowly, steadying his heartbeat. This was not about proving anything to anyone. It was about reconnecting with himself, reclaiming a part of life he had been told to leave behind. It was about trust, discipline, and memory. His hands were capable, his mind was ready, and his heart, though cautious, was willing. The past and present merged as he lingered in that quiet room. Memories of what he had loved, what he had lost, and what he still carried with him formed a bridge. He realized that what made him human was not perfection, nor talent alone, but the persistence to keep trying, to keep loving, even when the world said it was too late. He stayed there for a long moment, letting the weight of it all settle. He did not rush. He did not act out of impulse. He simply felt the connection, felt the pull, and acknowledged it. It was enough to know that something inside him had survived, that his passion and skill were not lost, and that perhaps one day soon he would act on it. For now he waited. But unlike before, the waiting was not empty. It was filled with preparation, memory, and quiet readiness. He had been patient all these years, and patience had taught him something vital. The right moment would come, and when it did, he would be ready to honor it, not recklessly, but with all the care, skill, and wonder he had cultivated in secret. The room remained quiet around him, people moving and talking, unaware of the internal transformation happening. He was still the same person to the outside world, unremarkable and cautious. Yet inside, a spark had been reignited. And that spark, he knew, could not be extinguished again. He lingered in the quiet room, feeling the tension between what he wanted and what he was told not to do. The warning echoed in his mind like a soft drumbeat, steady and persistent. Don't touch it. Don't risk it. Don't make a mistake. Every instinct screamed caution, yet there was something stronger pulling him forward. The memory of what he could do, what he had once loved, whispered in his mind, urging him to try. He moved closer, step by step, his body tense with anticipation. The room seemed to shrink around him, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. He could hear faint noises from outside, but they felt distant, like someone else's life happening far away. Here, in this small space, it was just him and the object, and the quiet pull that he could no longer ignore. He placed his hands lightly on the edge, careful not to push, pull, or even apply pressure. The moment his skin brushed against it, memories came rushing back. He felt the sensation of movement, the rhythm he had learned, the flow that had once brought him endless joy. His hands remembered before his mind did. It was a strange feeling, both familiar and foreign, like returning to a home you had not seen for years. The fear was still there, sitting heavy in his chest. What if he failed? What if he ruined something important? The thought of breaking the delicate balance made his stomach twist. But the memory of the joy, the beauty he had once created, outweighed the fear. He had lived with caution long enough. It was time to see if he could trust himself again. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the memory guide him. He felt the position of his hands, the rhythm of his fingers, the motion he had repeated countless times in solitude. It was all still there, hidden beneath years of careful living, waiting for this moment. He took a slow breath, steadying himself, and opened his eyes. People nearby did not notice him at first. They were busy with their own concerns, unaware of the quiet decision taking place. He was alone in a crowded room, shielded by the ordinary and the overlooked. That anonymity gave him courage. No one was judging him yet, no one was expecting him to fail. He could act freely, guided only by the memory and the skill he had nurtured in secret. He touched it gently, testing the weight, the texture, the feel of it beneath his fingers. Everything was as he remembered, yet it had aged, carrying small imperfections that spoke of time and use. It was alive with history, and he was suddenly aware that he was not the first to approach it, nor the last. The awareness did not intimidate him. It filled him with reverence, reminding him that his own journey was part of something larger. The first motion was slow and careful. He did not rush, did not try to impress. He let his fingers move naturally, guided by the muscle memory that had been hiding beneath caution for so many years. The rhythm returned, not perfectly, but enough to spark the familiar thrill. The room seemed to pause, the air charged with a quiet energy that no one could see but he could feel. He felt his confidence growing with each small movement. The hesitation that had clung to him all these years began to loosen. The memory of countless nights spent practicing alone, the quiet determination that had kept him connected to this skill, surged forward. He realized that his fear had been a guardian, protecting something precious, but it was time to let the guard step aside. The next motion was bolder, guided by intuition rather than hesitation. He could feel the flow of his hands syncing with the object, a connection that went beyond thought. It was instinct, memory, and heart combined. Every motion felt alive, purposeful, and beautiful. For a moment, he forgot the people around him, the warnings, even the past that had shaped him. There was only this moment, this connection, this spark of wonder. A small part of him wanted to stop, to retreat and leave it untouched, safe and unbroken. But the joy of movement, the thrill of reconnecting with his skill, was irresistible. He allowed himself to move fully, guided by the memory and the careful control he had cultivated over the years. His fingers remembered patterns he had not consciously thought about, motions that had once come naturally, now returning with clarity. The rhythm grew stronger, and he felt a sense of flow he had not experienced in years. It was like returning to a long-lost language, one he had always known but had not spoken aloud. Every motion was precise yet free, careful yet expressive. It was both familiar and new, a perfect balance between past and present. Time seemed to stretch. The world outside the room no longer existed. He was alone with the object, his hands, and the quiet magic of connection. He could feel the energy building, a subtle force that carried both risk and reward. Every motion was a choice, every decision a test of trust in himself. He was not reckless. He was focused, aware, and completely alive. He paused for a moment, letting the feeling settle. It was not enough to act blindly. He had learned that beauty required attention, that skill required respect. He looked closely at his hands, at the subtle adjustments he made, at the way his fingers responded without thought. It was a dance between control and intuition, between memory and present action. The fear did not disappear, but it changed. It became a partner rather than an obstacle, a reminder of the importance of care and focus. He realized that the warning he had heard so many times was not about stopping him from trying, but about teaching him to respect what he was handling, to understand the responsibility that came with skill. With that understanding, he continued. Each motion grew smoother, more confident, more natural. The spark of wonder inside him expanded, filling his mind with the joy he had forgotten. He could feel the excitement rising, not reckless, but steady and controlled. This was the reward of patience, practice, and trust in oneself. The room remained quiet, the people unaware of the quiet transformation taking place. He was still the same person outwardly, unremarkable to those who watched from a distance. But inside, he was alive in a way he had not been for years. The tension that had built for decades was giving way to the flow of action, the joy of connection, and the thrill of rediscovery. He allowed himself to move fully now, not in secret, not with hesitation, but with confidence and care. Every motion was deliberate, every touch meaningful. The past and present merged, guiding his hands with a precision that only years of hidden practice could create. He felt the balance, the rhythm, the harmony that had once been the center of his life, and it was as powerful as he remembered. He realized then that the choice to try was more important than the outcome. He could fail, make mistakes, or falter, but the act of stepping forward, of trusting himself, was in itself a victory. He had been waiting for this moment, and the moment was here. The warning had not disappeared, but it had transformed into a guide, a reminder that skill and care must coexist. His fingers moved with increasing confidence, tracing patterns he had not consciously remembered, yet executed flawlessly. He was no longer thinking, no longer hesitating. The connection between memory, skill, and emotion was complete. He was present, alive, and in harmony with what he had once loved. A quiet smile touched his lips, though he did not realize it. There was no audience, no applause, no recognition yet. That did not matter. What mattered was the quiet satisfaction, the deep sense of alignment between who he had been, who he was, and who he could still become. It was a moment of pure engagement, a rediscovery of a self long hidden but never lost. For the first time in decades, he understood that the warnings, the doubt, and the fear had been part of the journey, but they were not the end. They were challenges to overcome, lessons to learn, and boundaries to respect. And now, having faced them quietly, he felt ready to move forward, to explore the possibilities, and to let the wonder of his own skill shine again. He stepped back slightly, breathing deeply, feeling the flow slowly settle. The tension remained, but it was different now. Sharper, focused, energized. He was ready to take the next step, to move beyond hesitation, and let his fingers truly express the wonder that had been waiting all these years. The choice had been made. The moment had come, and he was prepared to embrace it fully, When his fingers finally moved with confidence, something remarkable happened. The motion, the rhythm, the subtle connection between his hands and the object became almost magical. It was not a show, not a performance, not a display for anyone to judge. It was pure, intimate, and alive, the result of years of hidden practice, patience, and a love for something that had never truly left him. He felt the energy surge, a quiet electricity that traveled from his fingertips to his heart. Every movement felt intentional yet effortless, every touch precise yet expressive. The flow he had remembered in solitude was now real, tangible, and undeniably beautiful. It was as if the world around him had slowed, leaving only the harmony between him and what he held. He realized that he had never truly forgotten. It had been waiting for this moment, buried beneath caution and silence. People nearby began to notice, though they had not expected to. Conversations paused. Eyes turned. Even the air seemed to change, as if recognizing the magic unfolding. Some froze in disbelief, unsure whether to speak, afraid of breaking the spell. Others could only watch, hearts skipping, captivated by the quiet brilliance of what was happening before them. There was no fanfare, no dramatic gesture, just the gentle revelation of talent and heart converging. He did not look up. He did not seek recognition. His focus was total, a delicate balance between awareness and instinct. His mind was clear, his heart steady, his hands guiding with a memory that had been sharpened over years. The feeling was electric, like rediscovering a lost part of himself and realizing it was even stronger than before. Every motion carried history and experience. Every subtle shift of his fingers told a story, one that spoke of patience, loss, resilience, and quiet determination. He could feel the response of the object beneath his hands, the way it seemed to resonate with the careful touch and mindful intent. It was a partnership, not a one-sided act. They moved together, breathing life into something that had been waiting silently for a skilled and faithful hand. The moment stretched, timeless and intense. He became aware that people were holding their breath, that they were feeling something he had long cherished alone. The connection he felt was no longer private. It radiated, subtle yet powerful, touching everyone who dared to look. But he did not break his focus. He was not performing. He was simply being, allowing the wonder to exist without interference. With each passing second, he felt the excitement building inside him. It was not reckless, but a quiet thrill, a joy that came from deep within. The fear that had once restrained him had been replaced by trust. Trust in his hands, in his memory, and in the careful attention that had guided him all these years. It was the perfect balance of skill and intuition, precision and freedom. He became aware of the small imperfections around him, the minor irregularities in the object, the slight resistance, the subtle textures. None of it deterred him. Instead, it inspired him. Each nuance became part of the experience, something to explore, to adjust to embrace. He realized that beauty was not about perfection, but about responsiveness, sensitivity, and connection. This was the essence of wonder. The ability to create something extraordinary from careful observation, respect, and practiced skill. People around him were now fully captivated. No one dared interrupt or speak. Some could barely move, as if acknowledging that they were witnessing something rare and special. They had warned him not to touch it, doubted him silently, assumed he would falter. And yet here he was, defying expectation not through arrogance, but through quiet mastery and the courage to trust himself. The sensation of accomplishment was overwhelming but subtle. It was not pride in the conventional sense. It was the deep, satisfying knowledge that he had finally reunited with a lost part of himself, that years of practice and patience had not gone to waste. The connection felt sacred, a fragile treasure he had nurtured in private, now revealed not for applause, but because it was ready to be shared by the act of being itself. He allowed himself to breathe more fully, to relax into the rhythm, to enjoy the flow without interference from judgment or expectation. Each movement was an affirmation, each touch a quiet statement. He had not lost himself, he had not forgotten, he had endured and returned. And in that endurance there was beauty, there was awe, there was pure wonder. The energy in the room was palpable, though silent. People felt it in their bones, in their hearts, even if they did not understand it fully. They saw the skill, yes, but more importantly, they felt the passion and courage that had made it possible. It was a reminder that talent and heart, when nurtured and trusted, could surpass expectation, break through doubt, and reveal something truly extraordinary. He continued with careful yet confident motions, fully engaged in the experience. There was no rush, no pressure, no concern for approval. The object responded naturally to his touch, moving in harmony with his fingers, as if recognizing the hand that approached it with care, respect, and understanding. He felt a connection that transcended instruction, expectation, or audience. It was the purest form of communication, a dialogue between memory, skill, and heart. At one point, he paused, listening to the resonance, feeling the subtle vibrations, sensing the quiet acknowledgement of effort and intention. The silence that had filled the room was not empty. It was alive, filled with awareness, attention, and a shared recognition of something remarkable. He smiled slightly, though it was private, the kind of smile that comes from being fully present, fully engaged, fully alive. He resumed, guided by instinct, intuition, and the quiet wisdom of experience. The rhythm became seamless, almost effortless, but beneath it was the result of countless hours spent in solitude, learning, adjusting, and refining. Every gesture carried significance, every motion was deliberate, and yet nothing felt forced. It was alive, breathing, a testament to the power of persistence, patience, and trust in oneself. The room remained still around him, people watching but silent. The warnings, doubts, and assumptions that had surrounded him vanished in this moment. They were replaced by quiet admiration, awe, and respect. The moment was not about proving them wrong. It was about showing what was possible when talent, patience, and courage converged. And it was undeniable, palpable, unforgettable. As he continued, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Not satisfaction for recognition, not satisfaction for attention, but the satisfaction that comes from mastery, from reconnecting with a skill that had been nurtured in secret, from discovering that what was once lost could return stronger than ever. It was the realization that wonder is not about luck or surprise, but about preparation, attention, and willingness to trust the path you have walked. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only moments, he stopped. He let his hands rest lightly, feeling the lingering resonance of movement, the quiet energy that remained. The room seemed to exhale with him, the tension easing, leaving only awe and silent acknowledgement. He did not need to speak, to explain, or to draw attention. The moment had said everything it needed to say. He stepped back slightly, letting the object rest, the room still holding the quiet energy he had created. People were no longer moving, some staring, some breathing slowly, all of them sensing the extraordinary event that had just unfolded. He felt a gentle pride, not in a boastful sense, but in the calm satisfaction of having trusted himself, having faced doubt, and having brought to life something that had waited patiently for his return. For the first time in a long time, he realized that warnings, caution, and fear were not enemies but teachers. They had kept him safe, yes, but they had also shown him the importance of trust, patience, and respect. And now, having navigated them carefully, he understood what it truly meant to create, to engage, and to allow wonder to happen. He stepped away fully, letting the room return to normal, yet aware that nothing would ever be quite the same again. He had touched something precious, not recklessly, but with care, skill, and heart. He had reclaimed a part of himself, and in doing so, he had reminded everyone present that true talent is quiet, profound, and capable of creating awe when given the chance to shine. The moment had passed, and the room seemed to breathe again. The quiet energy lingered, not loud or dramatic, but present, like a soft hum that could not be ignored. People around him were still, their faces reflecting awe, disbelief, and respect. Some whispered quietly, others simply stared, but no one moved too quickly, afraid to disturb the fragile beauty that had just unfolded. He stepped back slowly, feeling the weight of what had happened. His hands, once trembling with hesitation, now rested calmly at his sides. There was no need for celebration. He had not sought applause, nor had he intended to prove anyone wrong. What had mattered was the act itself, the connection, the rediscovery, the quiet triumph of trusting himself when the world had advised otherwise. The realization washed over him that something inside had shifted. Years of caution, doubt, and self-restraint had led to this single moment of clarity and grace. He had faced fear, honored skill, and embraced the joy that had been waiting for him all along. And in doing so, he felt renewed, not only in his abilities but in his understanding of himself. Some people cautiously approached, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and admiration. They did not speak immediately. Words felt unnecessary. The respect in their eyes said more than language ever could. They saw not only the skill but the courage, the quiet perseverance, and the years of hidden dedication that had allowed this moment to happen. And though they had once doubted, they now understood that what they had witnessed was the result of patience, practice, and an unwavering commitment to something greater than immediate recognition. He nodded slightly, acknowledging their presence without drawing attention to himself. There was no prideful gesture, no boastful smile. He had learned long ago that true accomplishment did not require validation. The joy came from the act itself, from knowing that he had followed his instincts, trusted his hands, and honored the skill that had been part of him all along. Recognition, if it came, was a gentle echo rather than a necessity. The room began to return to its normal rhythm, but he knew that nothing would ever feel ordinary again. The air carried a subtle weight, a reminder that moments of pure wonder were rare, fragile, and transformative. People resumed their tasks slowly, some exchanging quiet remarks, but the sense of awe remained. It was a shared experience, intangible yet undeniable, and it left a mark on everyone present, even if they could not fully articulate it. He reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The years of careful practice, the patience cultivated in solitude, the courage to face doubt, all of it had culminated in this moment. He realized that true mastery is not about speed, fame, or applause. It is about understanding, trust, and the willingness to act when the opportunity arises. The warnings, the doubts, the fear, they had been part of the process, guiding him to respect the challenge and to prepare for the moment when he could meet it fully. A quiet sense of gratitude filled him. Gratitude for the skills he had preserved, for the patience that had kept him practicing, for the inner strength that had allowed him to trust himself. He understood that life often tests people in ways that are unseen, that talent and heart can exist quietly, waiting for the right time to be revealed. And when that time comes, the result can be extraordinary, not because of external recognition, but because of the integrity and courage behind the act. He looked around the room, noticing the subtle reactions of those present. Their awe was not just about the object or the skill displayed. It was about witnessing someone confront doubt, embrace possibility, and emerge fully engaged with their talent. It was a reminder that the human spirit is resilient, capable of rediscovering what has been hidden, and finding joy in what had seemed lost. He felt a deep connection to that truth. It was a reminder that the choices made quietly, the moments of practice and reflection, the courage to act when it matters, they are what define a person, more than accolades, more than approval, more than the opinions of others. The quiet triumph of mastery and trust is profound and enduring, and it leaves a mark that cannot be erased by time or circumstance. The room gradually returned to its ordinary pace, but the change in him was permanent. He knew that he had reclaimed something vital, something that would influence every future moment of creativity and focus. The experience had reaffirmed his understanding of patience, skill, and courage. It had reminded him that trust in oneself is the foundation of true accomplishment. He stepped away from the object, letting it rest in peace, its purpose fulfilled for now. The subtle resonance of his actions remained, but he did not linger. He understood that wonder is not a possession but an experience, something that exists in the interaction between skill, heart, and opportunity. To To hold it too tightly or claim it for oneself would diminish its purity. He allowed it to exist freely, leaving an impression on both himself and those who had witnessed it. As he walked away, he felt lighter, freer, and more connected to his own abilities. The moment had proven to him that he was capable, not because others had recognized it, but because he had trusted himself. That trust, nurtured over years of quiet practice and reflection, was the real achievement. Everything else was a consequence, a gentle acknowledgement from the world, but not the source of fulfillment. He understood that life often places limits, warnings, and doubts in front of people, not to punish them, but to challenge them to grow, to prepare, and to choose wisely. The courage to act despite fear, the patience to practice in solitude, and the discipline to honor what is delicate and valuable. These are the marks of a person who has truly understood mastery. He had experienced it, and it had changed him. The people around him began to resume their lives, some quietly talking, others moving to different parts of the room. Yet the moment lingered, a silent reminder of what had been achieved. No one spoke loudly, no one made grand gestures. They simply acknowledged the power of trust, the beauty of patience, and the quiet brilliance of someone who had dared to act despite doubt. He felt a sense of completion, not in triumph over others, but in alignment with himself. The journey had been long, filled with hesitation, doubt, and careful preparation. And now, having acted with skill and courage, he felt whole again. The quiet wonder that had once been hidden was now alive, both within him and reflected in the world around him. He knew that this moment would stay with him, not as a story to tell or a performance to repeat, but as a reminder of what is possible when preparation meets opportunity, when trust overcomes fear, and when skill and heart unite. It was a simple truth, but a profound one, capable of shaping his choices, actions, and perspective for years to come. He left the room slowly, feeling the calm weight of accomplishment, the quiet satisfaction of rediscovery, and the enduring presence of wonder. It was a reminder that life often tests people in unexpected ways, but that courage, patience, and trust can lead to moments of extraordinary beauty. And in that understanding, he felt ready for whatever came next, carrying with him the quiet, enduring proof that when the time is right, wonder is always possible.